So you don't want to have kids?
If I don't ever want kids, is that a problem with you? Because right now in my head's that's the case, if I'm being honest with you.
From the look in Rob's eyes, Sophie, yes, that is going to be a problem. If you don't want kids, then it doesn't look like he wants to get married. In fact, the way he sees it, he may as well just go back to being a bachelor.
Even Jay-Z and Beyonce got kids. It's like, I don't want to be single forever. If I wanted to not have kids, I'd probably be a player forever.
Yeah, you'd have thought that they may have discussed this topic privately before applying for a K1 visa. But better late than never, I guess. Now, before we dive into each of their relationship expectations, let's rewind to the beginning. So, the last we saw these two, Rob and Sophie were at each other's throats. Sophie accused Rob of online cheating, something that he denied. But when we join them in this episode, it seems like they've put that behind them. You see, they're off to meet up with Rob's sister, Victoria, and it's clear Sophie is feeling the pressure. The thing is, Rob isn't helping. He's just adding to her stress levels.
I feel like low-key your sister makes me a bit nervous.
Why? It's not like you've done anything for her to want to fight you or anything, so
Yeah.
we should be good.
How reassuring. Thanks, Rob. There's nothing better than meeting up with your future sister-in-law and being told she has no reason to fight you today. But be warned, Sophie, that could change at any second. One wrong look is all it will take to make an enemy of Victoria forever.
All right, so when you meet Victoria, don't make eye contact immediately. She can get pretty aggressive.
You being serious?
Yeah.
Actually.
Poor Sophie actually believes him. This feels a little bit cruel, but it also shows us that Sophie's on edge. She's already nervous. She's feeling the pressure of her new environment, meeting people she doesn't know too well. And although she has already met Victoria before, just like her relationship with Rob, there's a lot that they don't know about each other. But we'll get to that shortly. Now, within seconds of meeting, it becomes very clear that Victoria's a sweetheart. In fact, judging by the way she shoves her brother out of the way to hug Sophie, it seems like she's ecstatic to see her again.
Hi!
Hey, yo.
How are you guys?
How you doing?
Oh, you're fine. I don't want to talk. Hi, How are you?
So, for all of Sophie's nerves, things actually start off really well. She and Victoria start to talk about her plans for the wedding, but Sophie makes a very telling statement. Sure, they might be under strict time constraints, and yeah, she might have been the one that originally proposed to Rob in a very unconventional, very shotgun fashion, but this is still a real wedding, she says, almost like she's trying to convince herself.
I want to do, obviously not like the huge ceremony, but like definitely something, because it's still like, you know, official kind of like getting married. Yeah. Like,
Yes, Sophie, you are officially getting married. Like, legally. It's a real wedding. That sounds just as much a reminder to herself as to the rest of the world, doesn't it? Now, before long, the wedding talk moves on to other matters. And Rob's sister has quite a serious question for these two. It's one that makes them both go very, very quiet.
Have you guys thought about kids?
I don't know, it's a valid question, don't get me wrong, but I'm not sure it's the appropriate question to be asking two adults that don't even have an indoor bathroom yet. Talk about putting the cart before the horse. But, seeing as they are planning to spend the rest of their lives together, it's a question you'd hope that these two have discussed themselves, right? But sadly, based on each of their responses, it becomes very clear that it's not.
We'll have kids in the future.
like, to be honest, like, I don't think I actually want to be pregnant.
Yeah, in short, these two aren't on the same page. Rob's definitive, yeah, we'll have kids in the future, is very, very different to Sophie's response. But Sophie's phrasing is quite interesting. It's a lot more ambiguous. I mean, she doesn't exactly say she doesn't want kids. What she says is she doesn't want to be pregnant. The two things aren't the same. It is possible to have kids without being pregnant, whether that's having a surrogate or adopting. So her response naturally leads to a follow-up question.
So you don't want to have kids?
If I don't ever want kids, is that a problem with you? Because right now where my head's at, that's the case, if I'm being honest with you.
Ah, okay, so that does seem a bit clearer, but Sophie is still being quite vague about the whole topic. Again, she's not ruling out kids definitively, and I think it's important to remember here that while Rob is 32, Sophie's nearly a decade younger than him. She's only 23 years old. Time is on her side. She might have, 20 years or more perhaps to have kids? So she does still have time to make up her mind. She definitely shouldn't be pressured into something this serious. But this news has come as a bombshell to Rob. And instead of asking more questions, learning more about Sophie's feelings, instead, he gets up and storms off like a complete child. Oh, the irony.
That's the problem, is you guys never had this conversation. There was a lot of assuming and thinking, but nobody talked.
This isn't the first time that we've seen communication problems between these two, and you get the feeling it won't be the last. So judging by how Rob reacts to things, it's not really a surprise that Sophie hasn't wanted to discuss such a serious topic with him. Like, he seems to have this knack of either getting really angry and aggressive or just storming off. But the truth is, if he's not going to sit down and have this conversation in a calm manner, well, then he's not going to learn Sophie's perspective, her reasons why she's hesitant. Because as Victoria finds out, Sophie does have her reasons.
When I was 15, they found there was a teratoma cyst in my left ovary. Which obviously, if they didn't find it in time, I would have died. Like, it's quite serious.
Yeah, that does sound very serious, but it raises a lot of questions. How have Sophie and Rob not discussed this before? How does Rob not know about her near-death experience and the effect that's had on her fertility? Well, according to Sophie, there's an explanation. You see, she feels that Rob should have asked her about her fertility, not the other way round.
Rob does know some stuff about it. I guess he's never really asked, does that affect you having kids? Like, if someone who really wants kids, I just feel like that would be the first thing you'd kind of wonder.
Yeah, sorry, but I disagree with Sophie here. This is the sort of issue that's on you to explain to the person you plan to spend the rest of your life with. It's unfair of her to put that on Rob. Like, based on what she just said, she did tell Rob about her near-death experience, just she fell short of telling him the full story, how it affects her fertility. And by not telling him, she's left out a huge part of the puzzle. Rob's got an incomplete picture. So all of this just makes you question, how much of these two even discussed what a joint future will look like?
And when we both ask about each other's future, it's the same thing. Me and him living inland with animals. Never one of us has mentioned with a couple kids.
Right, so according to Sophie, Rob has never stated that he wanted children. She's saying that this is brand new information. Whereas on the other hand, Rob, who's still cooling off, well, he feels that's just not the case. He says they have talked about kids. Heck, they've even discussed future children's names.
How does a man talk about what his kids' names would be, and then she gonna act like she doesn't remember that and act like she didn't know I would want kids? It just sounds stupid.
So, as their disagreement rages on in the arcade, Sophie at least pretends to be an adult and goes to find Rob. He really does seem to be acting a child. He's playing an arcade game like a little kid. He can't even look up at her. And when Sophie asks him if he's okay, if he'd like to have a chat, instead, like a true baby, he just continues to sulk. He continues playing his game.
You okay?
Am I okay?
Can you stop for a sec? Can you just stop?
Now, eventually, with a bit more pleading from Sophie, Rob stops his game, and he decides to call Sophie out. He accuses her of knowing that he wants kids. He's treating her like she's ruined all of his plans. Plans that she claims they've never even discussed with each other. Rob's irate. He's acting completely blindsided. And it's clear you can't have a conversation with him when he's acting like this. So, wisely, Sophie says that she doesn't think now is a good time or place for this serious discussion.
I feel like you didn't hit me over the head with the like, and then you're trying to act like you have no idea that I would want kids.
I just don't want to talk about this at a, like, arcade place. Like, it's
Well-
not...
It's not exactly the ideal evening spent with Rob's family. But as awkward as this whole thing was, Rob's sister is extremely understanding. Now, before leaving, Victoria goes to find her brother, and she plays devil's advocate. She tries to explain things from Sophie's perspective, her health issues for example. She makes it clear to Rob that things aren't always black and white.
She confided in me a little bit that it's more like a medical, like it's a legitimate medical fear that like she fears for her life.
But for as well as Victoria clearly knows her brother, for as much as she tries to plead with him to have a calm conversation with Sophie to try and understand her viewpoint, Rob just can't see any other perspective than his own. His mind has gone to a dark place. He's defaulted to thinking worst case scenario before he's even had the chance to talk things through with Sophie.
Because I could not walk down the aisle today. I couldn't do that. It would be a lie, because my heart is really torn right now.
Now, for Rob, Sophie's revelation today has the potential to derail their entire relationship. And don't forget, this isn't the only secret Sophie's keeping from him. You've got to imagine he won't be happy to learn she wants other sexual partners too. But even without that knowledge, Sophie is clearly feeling the venom from Rob. She knows all too well that sharing what she has will come with real repercussions. She's experienced them before.
This is what he does. He's heard something he doesn't like, shutting down. He doesn't want to listen to me or understand my personal reasons as to why I don't want children.
It's a tough one, right? This is a very serious topic and there's no right or wrong answer. No one should ever be pressured into having kids if they don't want them. But what these two do need to do is sit down and have a conversation. Plan out their goals, their aspirations, and how they see their lives. Are they both on the same page? Do they both want the same things? Because if not, it's better they find that out sooner rather than later.
Even Jay-Z and Beyonce got kids. It's like, I don't want to be single forever. If I wanted to not have kids, I'd probably be a player forever.
I mean, sorry Rob, but you're in no position to compare yourself to Jay-Z and Beyonce. Maybe worry less about them and focus more on yourself. The way he's acting, the way he's talking here comes across as quite disrespectful. It's as if, without kids, Sophie's no use to him. He's better off going and playing the field, being a bachelor. The problem is, when they arrive home, instead of talking things through, Sophie puts a halt to the conversation.
I'm overly exhausted, so I really don't have the energy to speak about something this big. So it's like, I feel like tomorrow I can give you my full energy.
The truth is, more than energy, this feels more like Sophie's way of trying to avoid an argument. She seems very uncomfortable having these serious conversations, but it does feel a bit selfish of her. I mean, she can clearly see just how much this has affected Rob. The problem is, by her refusing to address the elephant in the room, it leads to Rob defaulting back to his own childish behaviour, to storming off. So he decides to leave and take the dog for a walk. And right now, there's just one thing on his mind. Is his future with or without Sophie?
I don't know how she can sleep. I know I'm not going to sleep. All I'm going to think about is wondering what's going to happen with my life.
You really do have to question, how has this conversation not come up before? How well do these two really know each other? The more I see them, the more I question whether this relationship is real, whether they're just acting for the cameras. It brings me back to what Sophie said at the beginning. Is this really a real wedding? Because right now, it's not just her that needs convincing.